It's PPE, man. Hi, Brenda. We're wearing our PPE.
Mine is Minions.
Mine is Mardi Gras.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can't do this. I can't breathe.
I know. I know. It gets old after a while. Besides that,
Yeah.
it's gonna rub my eyebrows off. I got to get this off.
You know, the percentage still has to be 75, 25.
I believe so.
Right now, we're what you can what I can. I don't know. Well, and then actually, I'm going to meet with guys.
Now I can turn the volume up.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Brenda. Where are you at?
I am in my office.
Oh, no, you're supposed to say you're in some tropical island.
Hold on one
It
second.
looks like it.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
I take care of this one thing.
Okay.
Brian's getting ready to hop on. So if everybody could put their phones on mute. Hi, Shawn. So if you're not speaking, go ahead and put your device on mute, and that way it's not backfeeding. And especially when our presenters like Shawn will be presenting today. Wow, getting a good turnout. How you doing, Mike? You're muted.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Somebody's got too much control over there.
Yeah, that would be Brenda.
That explains so much.
And I'm playing the part of Brian today.
So you're B2.
Oh, I'm Dave, by the way.
Hi, Shawn.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Shawn. How's it going, guys?
Hi.
Looking like we got quite a few in this one. That's always good to see.
If
So,
there was a power control person, it would.
so Brian, have you met Kathy and Margaret?
I do not recall if I have.
Well,
I
Kathy
unmuted myself now.
Yeah, Kathy is the executive director for NATA, and Margaret is her, what's your title, Margaret?
Outreach coordinator and bookkeeper.
Okay.
And then you put,
Office manager.
you put extraordinaire on the end of that as well.
Of course.
Et cetera is what goes on the end of it. Et
That's always the
cetera,
way
et
it
cetera.
goes.
That's kind of both our titles.
Mhm.
With two people in the office, we kind of like executive director, insurance agent,
You
safe
file this,
agent.
I'll get the
Yeah.
phone.
So it looks like we have quite a few people on the call. We still have 3 minutes before the meeting even starts.
Nice.
I don't think I'm going to do the self-introductions until after Shawn and Paul are done, because that way they have a really busy schedule, and that
Okay.
way they could hop off of the call,
call.
when they're
Sure.
done doing their presenting. Is that okay?
That's fine with me.
All right.
You just let me know when I need to go and I'll do it.
Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Dave's muted.
Oh, yeah, Dave's muted.
All right, I'm unmuted. You probably like me better muted though.
Oh, you never know. Like the beard.
Nice
Looks
seeing you
good.
again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
He's growing a little face fur.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of face fur today. Russ
Yeah.
Jones at PCC looks like a Yeti. He's just all fur.
Yeah.
45, that's good.
Wow.
I told Paul and Shawn that this was important, and we were thinking about doing it next week, but it's so important. But more information is coming in all the time, you know. So I mean,
Exactly.
for them to get all the information, I mean, they're just, it's amazing how fast it's coming through.
Yeah, I agree.
I just saw Nancy was on, but I don't see her now. There you are,
Oh.
Nancy.
Where's Nancy?
She's down on the bottom, but you're muted, Nancy.
There you are. Hi,
Hey,
Kat.
Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah,
Nice.
There's
there's
tea.
T. Hi, T.
Hi.
Wow.
How come your
54.
hair looks so good, Nancy?
That's because I'm far away from you. Hey, watch.
No, it does look good. Come here, Silver.
It's not fair. Everybody tells me I look bald in this. They tell me I'm bald, but I have hair. See, it's still there.
I
Still
still
can't-
have
we
more
still
than you,
can't see it, Jeff.
so
Yeah. Margaret still has more than you, Jeff.
I'm more than you.
Oh,
Yep, it's coming.
yeah, but you have a reason.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
So do you,
I
Jeff.
have two before it all grows back in, though, I think.
It's 1 o'clock now, and so we
Okay.
still have people coming on, which is great.
Should we mute ourselves?
Yeah, let's go ahead and everybody mute. Great. We have 65 people on so far. So I'd like to thank Kathy and Margaret from NATA for being on this call today and working with us. You know, it's always great to work with Kathy and Margaret and NATA. We've done some joint things together, and I really appreciate it. My name is Jeff Lovell with the Automotive Service Association. I'm the executive director. Dave, at this time, would you go ahead and read the disclaimer?
Certainly. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin today's meeting, we are required to remind you that due to antitrust laws, we are not allowed to discuss any subject relating to prices charged, labor rates, or other similar subjects. In addition, the programs or speakers presented are not necessarily endorsed by ASA, nor do they express the association's views. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So at this time, I'd like to have Kathy and Margaret talk about what's happening with NATA and Oregon.
Hi, I'm Kathy Webb. I'm the Executive Director for Northwest Automotive Trades Association. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Jeff, for thinking of this and inviting NATA membership to this very important meeting. I'm sure it'll be filled with information that will really help all our members. And the fact that we're working together like this, it's for the benefit of ASA members, NATA members, all auto programs and businesses. So thank you very much for thinking of us on that. And I just wanted to let you know that NATA almost daily is updating our website with information. We have a COVID-19 tab that we added, and you can go into that and find out information, what's going on in Oregon, what the new open dates are, what the rules are, PPP programs, small business loans, and we also added a online training tab, which includes free online classes for not only for laid off employees that might be techs or something, but also for anybody in management. So if you want to check that out, it's www.aboutnata.org. And on that same website, we also have our other benefits that we do offer membership, like the SAFE discount was just announced that it went to 10% for all NATA members, and we have the great group health plan. So I think ASA has incredible benefits for their members, and I think NATA does too. And to be a dual member would be awesome, because then you'd be getting the best from both worlds. So I don't know if you have anything to say, Margaret, but now would be the time.
I don't. I just think that it's great that we're looking at this from the automotive industry's perspective and not from our association perspective,
Right.
because we're all getting these calls every day about PPP and what's next and what's, and how to deal with the receipts and how to document. So I'm really excited that
Yes.
they put together some folks that can answer these questions for us. So I'm really happy about this. Thanks a lot, Jeff. And Brenda, you did a great job setting
And
this
Brenda,
up.
yeah. Thank you, Brenda.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for being here again. I'd like to thank Shawn and Paul for being on and presenting today. And like I said, we were probably going to do this next week, but things are just happening so fast that we felt it so important to do this today. And I can tell by the response we have 80 people on the call today. So as you can see, we know that this is an important subject. So we also have our website set up with a COVID-19 section in it. We update it daily with the information. We just received information on the fourth stimulus package that they'll be voting on Friday this week. And so we're going to get that out. It'll be the full bill, and everything will be in the Dateline going out this afternoon. And we've been doing the Dateline once a week instead of once a month since this all started. So to keep everybody updated just as much as possible. So at this time, I'd like to thank the members that helped us with the support for the iTech apprenticeship program a week ago. We have applied for another grant, and as part of that grant, it's like $450,000 to work on our iTech program and get more technicians in the automotive industry. And we had our retreat set up for June 25th through the 28th at the Heathman Lodge down in Vancouver, and we've canceled that. We have ATE starting July 31st and going through August 2nd, and that's at the Doubletree SeaTac Airport. We have not made a decision not to have that program yet. We are still watching and seeing what's going on. We're like you guys, we don't have a crystal ball. The only crystal ball I have is I shake it up and it has snowflakes in it, and it's not working for us. So we just wait every day, just waiting for what's going to happen next. So we have our golf tournament. They have opened up golf again, and that's August 12th, and that's going to be at Eagles Pride in DuPont. And then we also have ATE East, which is scheduled for October 23rd and 24th over in Spokane. So I'd like to thank everyone for your support of ASA and NATA, and we can't do what we do without you guys. So and at this time, I'd like to have Brian jump on and talk about the cash for clunkers.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. Wow, what a large group we've got in this room today. That's just great to see. And you know, the positive there is I would have to guess that everybody who's here is because they got assistance, and we want to make sure that it is forgivable. So it's good to see all those heads. So Cash for Clunkers. If you haven't been following this, this is maybe I'll call it a pet project. Ford Motor Company is pushing to see this thing get enacted for a second time. ASA strongly opposes this, and you know, we are urging all of our members to hop onto the website, fill out. And Brenda, I can see you there. Maybe if you can post that link for us. I can't post one through there that everybody can click into. So if you could post that link up there for us, I fully recommend you pop in there, sign up. It will take you directly to whoever your representative is and let them know where you stand. And we're strongly encouraging all of our members to sign up, oppose this. You think about last time, just the cars that it took out of circulation and the used parts, without a doubt, it will hurt the industry. So we're just hoping you can get behind us and put your name on it. So that's what we got on the Cash for Clunkers. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And at this time, I'd like to have Dave do the introduction of Shawn and Paul. And Dave, if you could do that.
All right, Paul Long and I are 19-year veteran of business banking, not just commercial banking, but working with small businesses under 10 million in annual sales. I am passionate about working with business owners and helping them understand the ever-changing banking industry, whether it's understanding what loan products your business should use, what tool will make your banking easier. Small business loans can be complicated if you don't have someone helping you through the process. Loans like SBA loans, loans for startup acquisitions, or lines of credit can all be confusing and get you in trouble if not used correctly. I have a business finance economics degree from Eastern Washington University, as well as graduated from numerous specialized programs. I worked for a successful small bank as vice president of business banking and SBA lending. Hang tight, let me get Shawn's. Shawn Mattingly, CPA, born and raised in Olympia, Washington. Shawn's first job out of high school was banking as a teller. While working full-time as a teller, she started her college education to fulfill her lifetime dream of being an accountant. She continued to work and attends college even when living in Italy for 3 years. She was distracted for a few years while starting a family, and then finally in 1998, she graduated from Central Washington University. She started her career at Weinand Associates just in time for the 1998 tax season, being a shareholder of the company in January of 2005. Shawn's main focus is in accounting and taxation and on business, building lasting relationships with business owners and individuals. Occasionally, Shawn is a guest speaker for organizations such as the Accounting and Finance Women's Alliance, Washington Association of Accountants, the Pierce County Bar Association. In addition, she's very active in the Lakewood Chamber of Commerce and has served as board members and ambassador. When she's not in the office working, you may find Shawn performing at local fairs and events as a belly dancer. She is part of a professional belly dancing troupe. Who says accounting is boring? Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thanks.
All right.
There's Paul.
I'm there.
Paul and I didn't get a chance to practice any of this stuff, and we're hoping that this is useful for you all. And I don't know what format you guys want. I uploaded, or actually Brenda, thank God Brenda's can do this stuff, upload a little outline I put together of just some basics, and we'll just go over some of that stuff. And I hope we have time to allow time for talking or asking questions, because I think we work together, sharing ideas and how to, and trying to interpret things that we don't have a lot of guidance on. I think that's
Right.
what the point is, to help everybody, because we're, you know, we are all dealing with the same thing. So how about you, Paul?
Yeah, so I definitely think question and answer time is going to be the most valuable. And of course, thank you very much, Shawn, for that worksheet that you sent out. That is perfect, and there's a lot of good info on there. I want to really make it very clear that neither Shawn nor I have the final guidance from SBA. It has not been released. This is what we are telling our clients, and we are sharing that information with you. So please hold us harmless.
And if anyone has a question, they could go to chat down at the bottom, and they can, that way during your presentation, they can just post it up on chat, and we'll do those right at the very end.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
Shawn,
you.
why don't we just start with at the top of your sheet and just kind of
Work down.
use that as our guide.
Sounds good. I'm going to reiterate what Paul said about the disclaimer of, holy cow, we're still waiting on guidance on so much, let alone, you know, U.S. Treasury and SBA, the how-tos, and how we're going to get forgiveness, what's the process and the platform. We're still getting guidance from IRS. The CARES Act passed March 27th. Prior to that, people were applying for EIDL loans and SBA advanced grants, and that was sort of a crazy time, if y'all recall that, because everyone was scrambling. And then the CARES Act happened. Before that, the Families First Coronavirus Act happened, where there was paid family medical leave and sick leave. They had to pay if you're at more than 500 employees or less than, you know, all these little things. And then everything's happened so fast and furious, but agonizingly slow on the guidance. So with that in mind, if everyone in the chat, I think Brenda uploaded a little PDF document. I just trying to go through the basics. A lot of the stuff you've probably already heard because you've been on calls and your ASAs providing links and things like that. But the number one thing is right now everyone's focused on forgiveness. If you could all wave, I can't see everybody's because there's 4 panels. There's 99 people on the call, which is awesome. Most people probably received some PPP funds in round 1 or round 2. There is still money available in round 2. I just talked to another banker, not Paul, last night, and they were telling me at a different bank that they were still processing about 100 applications still. So if you know someone that hasn't done it yet, there's still some money available. Working with a smaller lender like Paul and Real Personal, that's your best avenue for that. So there's still money available. So if you don't have it, or if you know someone that's looking for it, there's still time. I haven't run out of money yet that I've heard. Have you heard, Paul?
No, last time I checked, there's about 70 billion left.
Yes, and the SBA website has some links where you can go to check to see the stats of what's been lent so far in the round 1 and round 2. Very interesting information. In the outline that I sent, I put the link to the SBA FAQs, which they keep adding every time you turn around. The first they had 16 questions, now there's 40-some questions. And some of it's real technical, doesn't matter, doesn't apply to us, but there's little tidbits of things in there that are useful to us to know about. But we're not going to go over that. But the biggest questions that came out, I kind of put some of the highlighted questions that I've been getting calls on for the last almost, 2 months? Yeah, 6 weeks on these basic questions. And we've had some guidance on some, but everyone wants to know at first, what's the covered period? What's 8 weeks? When does that start? It starts right after you get your money in the bank. So most of you probably got it, are counting your days. So we know that. The covered period starts when you get your money. Then the next question is, well, how do we get forgiveness and what's allowed and what isn't allowed? Pretty straightforward. Payroll and some non-payroll costs, right? But then there's definition of like, well, what is payroll costs? What are they allowed? What's allowed? What isn't allowed? And what are the non-payroll costs? And how does this work? We have to remember the intent of the CARES Act and the PPP loan was to help businesses retain, rehire, and keep their employees on payroll versus the burden of everyone on unemployment, which is usually state funded. This pile of PPP money comes from another source. So the intent of that is to keep business rolling along. And when the CARES Act passed in March, end of March, everyone thought, oh, this will be over in 8 weeks, or it won't be that long. Turns out it's probably going to be a little longer than that. So the intent is to keep businesses rolling, but we also have to look, each business has their own short and long-term goals that are specific to that business. Depending on the size and the structure or other avenues to working capital you have or the type of business you are at, these factors are different for every business. Everyone in the automotive industry is an essential business. Most of you are open. Your car counts and things are probably down, but you're allowed to open. Unlike some industries that can't open at all, and they're still not open. Salons and places like hairdressers, I have lots of hairdresser clients and salons, and they're really struggling. So the answers to these things are different for different people. So loan forgiveness, payroll costs, super important. That's the number one thing. And the forgiveness piece is 75% has to be payroll, and then 25 can be non-payroll. And if you meet all those numbers, the loan is forgiven. Sounds like magic, doesn't it? Paul, how am I doing? You're
Nope,
quiet.
you're doing good. You're going to dive into deeper on that, right?
No, we're done with that part. Just kidding. Yes.
Well, I do want to add one thing on this. I do want to add that it is critical that people know that all this information that you're going to gather at the end of the 8 weeks is going to go back to the banker. This is not going to go directly to SBA. You're going to go back to your banker and prove this, and then we go into our super cool computers and say what is forgiven and what isn't. So be aware of that.
Thank you. Good reminder, Paul. So I will try to go in the order of this outline. So the payroll costs that are allowed and eligible, it's in this outline if you've got it. I know Brenda put it up there. Salary, wages, compensation, vacation time, sick time, medical leave time, separation pay, group health benefits. Most businesses, not all, have group health benefits, employer pays, insurance, employer retirement plan contributions, employer portion, state and local payroll taxes. There's some question about what that means in our state. I've had arguments or chats with other CPAs. Oh, it means L&I taxes. No, it doesn't. We don't really know. Definitely unemployment. So payroll costs that are included, salaries and wages. For most businesses, that's pretty straightforward what your wages are. What isn't allowed is if you have 1099 contractor employees. Maybe you have an outside bookkeeper that works on site, but she's her own business, or he, that pay to that person isn't allowed. Wages for employees whose compensation annually is over $100,000. So we have to be careful how we're tracking amounts over $100,000. Not always pertinent to every industry, but it is to plenty. So we're still allowed to pay those people wages, but we have to kick out some of their payroll costs to comply with the forgiveness piece. And then things that aren't allowed are if the company is participating in any of the employee retention credits or some of the other plans under the CARES Act or Family First Coronavirus Act, you can't double dip. So if you're working with the employee retention credit, which is more of a payroll tax credit, it's really complicated. IRS has some new forms around that. You can't also use PPP funds at the same time, no double dipping. We're not going to talk about the employee retention credit because that's like a 2-hour intense payroll class and nobody wants to listen to that, even me. It's very complex. So, and also what's not included is the employer's portion of payroll taxes. This has people really confused. And so when you're processing payroll, and I know business owners or bookkeepers are looking at this, we look at gross wages. Gross wages. So if I make $10 an hour and I have 100 hours, I get $1,000 in my gross pay. Yay! That gross pay is the pay for this payroll. Yes, the employee we have to take income taxes and Social Security, Medicare out of their pay, but the gross pay is what we're looking at. Now, the employer has to pay payroll taxes, but those payroll taxes that the employer pays, Social Security and Medicare, the matching numbers for the employer has to pay, those aren't allowed for the forgiveness piece. We all know that we have to pay those, and you have to continue to pay those. You don't want to get behind any of that stuff. So the confusing part is, well, I process my payroll and I have to pay a 941 EFTPS payment, or my payroll service yanks it all out in one lump sum. How do I sort it all out? If you're using a payroll service, you'll have payroll reports, ADPs, the paychecks, the Benefit Mall, Gusto, whatever platform you're using. If you're not doing it yourself in your own software, they're creating reports for this purpose. So you'll be able to know what that is. Or it's gross wages. So that's a salary report. We know what isn't included. What are the non-payroll costs? Well, that's pretty straightforward. Rent, well, nothing's really straightforward.
No.
Rent. It sounds straightforward. Rent. Does that mean rent with CAM charges? Are we allowed to have third-party, related party leases? Yes, I think we can. Should you have a signed lease in place? Absolutely. Now, once in a while, I might have some clients that maybe own their own building and maybe they forgot to renew their lease 5 years ago and they're still paying themselves some lease. They might want to dig deep into their files and make sure that they have a signed and executed lease that's dated before February 15, 2020. Hint, hint. That applies to anybody. Get a copy of your lease agreement. We don't know if this is only related to real estate leases or if we could also include personal property leases, like equipment leases. At this time, I don't think we can. I'm not telling people to include. So we say no on that.
Nope.
Just regular estate. Yeah, no, I agree with Paul. But people were chattering about it. It includes equipment rent. No, it doesn't. So keep on that. Utility payments. Well, at first, this is pretty vague. What does that mean? Well, it's your traditional gas, water, utility, sewer for your business. Telephone and internet. It also includes transportation, although that's kind of vague. We haven't had a whole lot of guidance on that, but be smart and prudent. Most of us pay utility bills for our businesses. The next piece is interest payments. Now, this is where things get kind of muddy. Paul, do you want to tag on here? And
few things on this. So one is on if you have a third party rent, so most people have a building in an LLC, okay? Obviously, you have that rental agreement that Shawn was talking about. I know other businesses that their business pays from their business any sort of mortgage payment. So keep in mind that as a part of the PPP, that's not your rent, that is your actual, so you have a payment that's due, but only the interest on that is PPP eligible if your business is the one that's paying for the loan that's under the business name. I know that's a little bit confusing, but I know some of the people on the call and I want to make sure that I address that.
Yeah.
Interest on loans and loan payments. For example, it needs to be a business loan that you're making the payments. So let's say, for example, well, I have a personal credit card that I use for all my business expenses. Is that PPP eligible to pay that interest? The answer is no, because it needs to be under the business name. So that's very critical in that type of situation. As well as it's only the interest part, not a penny of principal can be used using the PPP to make it forgiven. Interest only on loan payments, and that can be any loan payment, as well as the rent and mortgage interest. So the key is interest, okay?
It can be very confusing. So if you have a straightforward lease, that's a lot simpler. If you got a little muddy in the water, the interest. So we get a lot of questions and I see a couple flashing out in the interest. Yeah. What about interest on credit cards?
Business credit cards interest is eligible.
Right. In the business name. Sometimes
Correct.
We have an issue where business owners have a personal credit card that they only use for business, but it's in that personal name. We've treated that way the whole time, and we don't jump up and down about that from an IRS perspective, because sometimes it's hard to get credit in a business name. We understand that. The SBA may not understand that. I mean, so we have to walk the walk here. There was also some question about regular equipment loans. Maybe you leased an alignment machine or a tow truck or something like that. It's got to be in the business name, the collateral, and maybe a UCC1 filing has to go on. There's some rules. We're still waiting on guidance on some of this stuff. Easy to track it right now. So your best strategy right now is to track everything that you are paying for and see if it's allowed later. We may get more guidance on some of the stuff, but some of the stuff is pretty straightforward. So just remember, just keep it as clean and simple as possible with that. A couple other, anything else on this interest and payment?
No,
Paul?
I think we beat that dead horse.
I think so too. And there's a couple of questions. I've seen some pop up, and I'm writing them down in between.
We'll get to them.
And someone says, yes, you can pay rent and more. Yeah, we'll get to,
Yeah.
we'll get to those. So the forgiveness piece, besides the 75% payroll, which I think is fairly straightforward, group health costs, let me dial back one, group health insurance, the employer's portion. If you've got a group plan, that's pretty straightforward. You know the employer's portion. If the employees are paying for a portion, you have to kick out what the employees paid for out of their paychecks, and only employer's portion. Recently, as of last week, IRS came out and they had some clarity on some of that group health insurance. When you have a plan like an HSA plan, if anyone uses an HSA plan along with their group health, the HSA employer portion that you contribute, because some employers kick in the HSA money for the employee, those are not allowed for PPP, for forgiveness, which seems strange. I was very surprised to see that from IRS. So HSA contributions by the employer, separately from the insurance premium as a health savings account, aren't allowed. And if a small business is using what's called a QSERA plan, which is a new plan that was in place in 2019, those contributions to a QSERA are not allowed as a group health benefit for PPP forgiveness purposes. So your traditional group health benefits, yes, that's allowed. Health reimbursements arrangements are around. Not too many people use the Section 105 plans, but they exist. Section 125 premium only plans, those are deducted generally pre-tax for employees. Those are allowed because they're part of gross wages. Medical savings accounts, which is super old, hardly anybody uses them, those are allowed. We don't know why IRS decided to punish HSAs, but in this case they are. So if you have a straightforward employee benefits group plan, not that hard. So that came out just last week with IRS. Again, this stuff is subject to change. Everything's happening so fast and furious, but it's achingly slow on the guidance here. So
I want to add again another thing as a part of this, and that is head counts, employee head counts. This is a really big hot topic on this. When should I hire my people back? All of that type stuff. And here's the thing you need to know. You have until June 30th to get back into the same amount of FTE, full-time equivalents. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. And your forgiveness will be reduced, not eliminated, if there is a decline in FTE or salaries have decreased. So I want to make sure that's really important that you have until June 30th to rehire, and keep in mind that 8 weeks to pay. So, and again, a lot of people are worried about, well, what if someone's on maternity leave, or what happens if? You gotta have the same FTE, or you're going to have some issues in the decline of your, the forgiveness part.
Thank you. And I saw a quick question pop up about health insurance premiums, so I was mentioning it. Yes, dental, vision, medical, yes. Cafeteria plans, those are Section 125 plans, and that's usually part of an employee's gross wage. You have your gross wage, and then you have pre-tax deductions. Again, it's that gross wage that we're going to submit that we paid for with PPP funds. And yes, so that those pre-tax deductions, that's part of the employee's gross pay. So it does include dental, and it does include vision and your traditional group medical benefits. Things like AFLAC, those are usually part of a Section 125 plan, premium only plan, or Colonial Life or AFLAC. And those are supplemental employee premiums that are deducted from their pay. Maybe there's some employers that pay for those, but I generally think those are supplemental. So I don't want to get off track, but the FTE, Paul is very correct. And in this little outline, if you have it, you've got to get your head count close or to it. So say you had 10 employees, but now you're at 80. If you just do the math, that's 80%. You're still within that. So the wages, the full-time employee equivalent And we also have to track what each employee is making during this time. Now, we all know that employees are kind of fluid, right? They come and go sometimes. The people we had on our payroll in 19 may not be exactly the same people we have on our payroll now, right? But our head counts might be similar, but the names change. And so we do have to look at what those employees are making individually, because if an employee makes less than 25% of they were making before, that's also going to reduce your forgiveness. I was chatting with believe it or not, I was on a conference call and got the phone number for the Seattle SBA director. She gave out her individual phone number. Crazy. I wrote it down. I called her. She answered the phone last week. I was surprised. And she, amazing. I just hit her up with all kinds of stuff. And most of it was, we don't have guidance on that. We don't have guidance on that. But what she did say was a good description, is that it's easy to hit your payroll costs. More than likely, everyone's going to do that. And your non-payroll, 25% rent, utilities, that kind of stuff. What people are concerned about is FTE count, full-time equivalent employee count. What if you're not up to your same capacity? And also wages. So those other little factors are just sort of like a dimmer switch that turns down the amount of forgiveness. Yes, that sounds bad, that I don't want a dimmer switch. Okay, well, how can I maximize this strategically so I don't have a dimmer switch? But those pieces are meant to turn that down so that there's less forgiven or whatever.
Another thing I want to add on that, and this has came up several times with other customers. So I think in you guys' situation, I think because you were essential from the very beginning, that I don't think you're going to have this problem, but I'm going to state it anyway. And that is, what happens if you have an employee that won't come back because they're on unemployment, making more money on unemployment rather than going back to work? You as an employer, you just need to cross your T's and dot your I's, because you must have a written offer back to them. You must have been in this, giving them the same position, wage, and hours. And you must have documentation that they rejected coming back. If you have all of that, then it's possible that they will actually be okay for you to reduce your FTE count. However, once they do that, the employee is now disqualified themselves from unemployment benefits. So
yes,
have fun with that.
That's actually happening even in essential businesses. I've talked to some folks, and for people that aren't open yet, and that's a real thing, written offer, written rejection, and they need to be reporting that to unemployment if they're not going to accept the position back. It's very difficult SBA came out with that early last week on the FAQs that they had. So we have multiple factors involved in forgiveness piece. And at the end of the day, if we don't get 100% of it forgiven, remember that this is a working capital loan with a whopping 1% rate and a 6-month deferral. Now we hear chatter that SBA might soften that deferral period, or they might soften the term instead of a 2-year 1% note, which can be pretty steep if your PPP loan was high. Then maybe they'll soften that. We don't have guidance on that yet. We can't really hang our hat on it, but it could be softened. But even if it isn't, it's pretty hard to get a 1% rate with the 6-month deferral with absolutely zero collateral. Now, Paul, tell me how many loans you offer normally like that. Any?
0.
That's what I thought. At the end of the day, sometimes what I've been experiencing in my chair here at the office on phone calls day in and day out is that we're so focused on forgiveness, which is cool, and we're going to talk a little more of that, but getting access to a low interest loan that we can do whatever we want with those proceeds, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Not everybody has an existing line of credit they can use at their discretion. Some people do. And if you don't have one, you should get one when this is all over. If you have one, you've probably had to use it, or maybe not, or you're saving it just in case. But this is the working capital loan. But the decision for each business and how they're going to handle this, it has to be your own. You must work with your lender, and you must work directly with the tax and accounting advisors, because everyone's situation is a little bit different. Everyone's entity structure could be slightly different. Everyone's employee counts are different. Their benefit packages are different. And you know, whether they're essential or non-essential, or can their employees work without being open to the public, all kinds of things that roll into this, different industries. So one of the things that came out recently from IRS, I think it was last week or a few weeks ago, the IRS came out and said, hey, this loan forgiveness piece is not going to be taxable to the business. Traditionally and generally speaking, cancellation of debt or debt forgiveness is taxable to the individual or entity. In this case, the forgiveness is not taxable. Well, last week, IRS came out with IRS Notice 2020-32 that said, yeah, that's not taxable. By the way, those expenses you're paying with the PPP loan aren't tax deductions. So
that's a big deal. That is a big deal.
It's a big deal. So what that means to everyone out there, whatever accounting system or whatever you're doing, and when you're ready to submit to your banker all this stuff, and we're going to talk about documentation real quick too, you're going to have to be able to give to your preparer or accountant, or in your financial statement somewhere, you'll have to record that like as an other income or other expense item, not as a generated operating income, to segregate that out from your regular deductible expenses. Because if you look at your profit and loss report and all the payrolls in there, and the loan forgiveness piece doesn't show up, you're gonna look like you made less money. I mean, again,
Right.
We don't want to double dip. So this can be very confusing for folks. It's going to be very key that you have excellent record keeping. And so when you're submitting to the banker for forgiveness, that everything's documented out, and that you're going to need to share that with your bookkeeper, accountant, your tax advisor, CPA, whatever, because this is going to be important. Of course, IRS could totally flip-flop on everything between now and then. We don't know.
Hey, Shawn, why don't we go into the documentation a little bit on what we want there, and then let's go and answer the questions in the group chat, and let's open that up, because I know that's going to be critical for people.
Yeah, so go ahead and start on the documentation, because that's going to be a fun part for you guys, bankers.
Yeah, so hold on, let me get it up here on my other computer. So on documentation, again, payroll is going to be easy. You have payroll reports, you have your 940, 941s, all of that is going to be simple. We'll need any sort of health insurance statement. We're going to need any sort of health insurance, state taxes, all of that. Pretty much the same information you did at application that the bank should have asked you for is what you're going to also do at disbursement. As well as if you use the entire PPP loan for payroll, then you do your 940, 941s, your statements, call it good. That's easy, okay? If you use it for other expenses, I'm gonna need canceled checks. I'm gonna need bank statements that show that it was paid from the bank account, etc. I would advise you, if you are anything like me and I put everything on my credit card and pay it off at the end of the month, I would advise you not to do that. You need to make sure that you have one place that you can pull a report from, whether that's an internal GL, whether that's a bank statement, ideally, and it'll show here's the interest payment, etc. So I gave another example to somebody earlier. Again, if you have $1,000 loan payment and $500 of that is interest, I would recommend you making two payments, one for the interest and one for the principal. That way it's tracked what is for interest and what is for principal, rather than making one payment for both, okay? You can't document enough. You really can't, okay? The more that you document, the easier the process will be. So that's the key thing. Cancel checks, bank statements. A lot of my customers are opening up secondary checking accounts to put the money in. And once the PPP is gone, they close it. that's fine, but at least you have one avenue to do that. And I think that is the best way to do that. Shawn, any counter on that? That's the quick and easy.
Yes, yes. We get a lot of questions. I see some popping up in the chat about how to track. What's the best way to do it? Not everybody uses the same accounting system. For folks that are using QuickBooks or something like that, you can classify or tag transactions. That's one idea for doing that. Set up a PPP class or tag and class them. A lot of people are opening up bank accounts and dumping the money in there, but the problem is they have utility bills that are automated out of a checking operations account. Their payroll, their EFTPS payment comes out of a payroll account. You know, it's easy to change, but then you got to change it back. Direct deposit, when you have that set up for employees, that comes out of your companies. Those are tricky things. And so for people who are just overwhelmed with that, I have to change all this banking for 8 weeks and then change it back, because that can be hard. What we've suggested is isolate your money in that separate PPP account or a savings account. But as you're paying bills from your operating account for things like gross payroll, transfer that gross payroll total, gross payroll. That's before employee deductions, before deductions for the employee's portion of health care and Section 125 AFLAC or Colonial or all those things, vision or dental, before you deduct that from the employee's pay. You shove that money right from your PPP account to your operating account for gross payroll. Your 941 deposit, your payroll tax deposit comes out of your operating account as normal. And that includes the employee's portion that you withheld, but also the employer's tax, which isn't allowed for the PPP. But the only thing you took out of the PPP was the gross wages. Same for the healthcare benefits. Maybe you're paying that automated. Employees pay for some, then the employer portion pays for the difference. Sometimes employers pay for it all, depends on your business. You'll need to pay that premium as normal, but you could reimburse from your PPP account into your general account just the employer's portion. Because the employee's portion, remember, that's part of gross wages. So in our brains, and if you guys are mechanics and technicians, you're real logical, practical. I mean, that's the way our brains work. I'm an accountant. I'm kind of like that way too. So we're thinking, on one hand, I've got all this money flowing out like normal, but on the other hand, I have to track all these expenses for forgiveness. They're two different things. We have to pay bills and take care of business normally, but then we have to track these costs. So, you know, use Excel. On the outline I put up, there's a PDF, there's a quick snapshot of a really sample Excel worksheet that Melinda at TNT Tire gave me. I was creating some of my own. She's like, look, I found this. Really cool. I shared it. People are coming up with worksheets. Use Excel. We know that your accounting records are in your accounting system, but use Excel to track something and have your loan start date, the total amount of your loan, track your payroll costs, track your amounts that are over 100,000 that you have to exclude, track your employer's benefit costs, your retirement costs, whatever is specific to your business, track that. Track it individually by employee. Some people have changed their payroll processing dates. They've gone from bi-weekly to weekly payrolls. You can do that if you want. That's cumbersome, but not impossible. It's not allowed. People have asked about bonuses. Well, can I employ employees a hazard bonus for working during coronavirus? Yeah, we think. We don't have any guidance on that says you can't. Nobody says we can, but it's part of normal. So if you pay your employees on production, and some of you do, and that's how they get paid or they get a bonus, then do that. Or you've got plumbers working in the field. I have a lot of plumbing clients, and their people are going into homes and exposing themselves to risks, and so they're giving a hazard a bonus. Are we going to get in trouble? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
And thank you, Melinda. I saw your little note on chat. You're welcome. Thank you so much. We don't know, but be reasonable. Bonus plans in general are supposed to be written, so have it in writing and make it available to everybody in your company. That's prudent to do so. But don't be greedy. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. People are looking over your shoulder here. When you submit all this stuff to Paul or whoever your banker is, you're going to make certifications and attestations that this is true and factual. And if you've been naughty, the business owner is the one that has to make these statements, not, you know, you're going to be in trouble. So we got to be very careful with that. So use Excel, use your accounting system. If you're doing a separate bank account, that's great. If you're not, that's okay too. What fits for one business doesn't necessarily fit for another business. Don't panic. Be grateful you have the PPP money, and just be smart and be detail oriented and document everything. Make sure you have your lease agreement handy, your invoices for your bills for your utilities. If you've got 4 different vendors for utilities, because you're the city and the county, this, that, and the other, and your internet and your cell phone provider, get those bills. A lot of us are paying those online. We don't really get a paper bill. Pull down that PDF copy and have it available. Document, document, document. Hopefully we'll get more guidelines on how we'll submit those to the bankers. We don't know. I feel really bad for them because they've been struggling so much with processing applications. Now they're going to process forgiveness, and everyone's 8 weeks started on different days. This is just going to go on. Some people are getting their PPP money this week. So their last 8 weeks is July, first part of July. So a couple things. It's hard to say a show of hands. Did anybody get the $10,000 or up to $10,000 SBA advance? Right, I see Brian, you're waving your hand. I can see on this panel a few people, right. We all applied for those early in March before the PPP came out. And guess when they showed up? The last couple weeks, we already got our PPP money, haven't we? When I was talking to the SBA Seattle area director last week, she told me for the $10,000, or maybe you only got 5 because you have 5 employees, whatever your dollar amount is, if you receive that, you're supposed to subtract that from your PPP loan for forgiveness. So if you got $100,000 and you got $10,000 SBA advance, your amount for forgiveness is $90,000, not $100,000.
Right.
Now, what some people have been doing since this money magically appeared, did anyone notice you didn't get an email? It appeared in a bank account. You're like, what the heck is this? I got so many calls last week about that. I was like, don't spend it. Just set it aside. We'll just give it back. Now that's a strategy. We all applied and we got nothing. And we're wondering, this is crazy. Well, SBA was just buried in applications. And they're working through processing those. Some people actually got the actual idle loans, which is a different matter. And you still have to factor that into your forgiveness. Remember, you have until April 14th if you want to give this money back without any issue. Brian, I see it just magically appeared in your account. It certainly did. It was crazy, but that's the way this is going. Fast and furious, extremely slow.
Let me make a comment about the EIDL loan and the PPP. So some people may have both. You can have both. However, you cannot use your EIDL loan for payroll. You can't double dip. Just like Shawn said earlier, you cannot double dip in anything. So if you use your EIDL for payroll and have a PPP, you are in jeopardy. So make sure that you're using the EIDL for anything else but payroll or interest mortgage payments or utilities, all those little things that you're doing. So just be aware of that.
Yeah. To add complexity to an already complex issue that's what's happened here. So we talked about the terms that apply if you don't get 100% forgiveness. It's actually a decent loan. People don't have to tell you what to do with it. That's not a bad deal. We've talked about documentation, what you need to do. Talked about tracking it and ways to do that. We talked about the income tax portion of it right now that we know what. And there's a lot of things we still need clarification on. Hopefully some of that will come out this week. So Paul, are we ready for trying to answer these lightning?
Let's do that. So I'm going to go through the chat function really quick, and I'm going to just make sure we didn't address it. I'm just going to read it out loud.
Okay.
I've heard that the IRS is not allowing you to deduct the expense associated with the forgiveness of PPP, which would essentially make the PPP taxable as income. Is that correct? I believe you did already discuss that, correct?
Right. So the forgiveness isn't taxable, but the expenses related to the forgiveness aren't deductible. It's a net zero. So it's all a zero if everything's perfect. Yeah.
Lisa asked, if we receive the money on April 14th, can we include our April 5th payday, rent and utilities that we already paid before we received the money? I look forward to hearing your answer to this, Shawn.
Oh, I'm going to say what the SBA lady told me. Oh, we're waiting on guidance for that.
Okay.
we don't know, because clients were like, well, should I tell my rent? I just sent my check to my landlord. I said, tell him to rip it up. Don't cash it yet. Okay. And so then we wrote it 2 days later, but we already paid. I don't know. My guess would be on the safe side, do not include that in your calculation at this time. But yeah, there's some open-ended items about cash and accrual. We all know that there's a payroll cutoff date on like the 25th, and we pay on the 31st or whatever your cutoff date is. Well, apparently SBA doesn't understand how businesses function, and that there's cutoff dates and there's cash and accrual matters. So I'm like, accountants did not write this rule. A bunch of politicians did or something like that. They're just crazy. So yeah, but that's a good question. We don't know, but let's not include it right now in forgiveness.
Nancy asked, my building is paid off. Can I take the property tax off?
No.
I don't think so.
Well, let's say the best answer for tax purposes, it depends. Now, if you own your own building in a separate entity like an LLC, and then you have an operating entity running your business, your S Corp or sole proprietor, you should have a lease agreement between your entity that holds the real estate and the entity that operates it. But if you don't have that in place, then we can't have rent.
Correct.
Yeah, and those are really specific questions to the specific business. Those are harder to answer, but keep going. Good job, Paul.
Interest on credit cards and lines of credit. Yes. Interest on business credit cards and business lines of credit.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful about the word business. The business name has to be on those accounts.
Yep. Is the payroll that we earned in the time frame but paid a few days after eligible? I would also say to be careful, no. Do it as of the date that you receive it.
Yeah, so a lot of people are changing their payroll periods, and they'll shorten their final one. Maybe they're sticking to their every 2-week payroll, but they see their last week one's going to be right in the middle of their 8th week, and they're shortening that payroll up. Maybe doing a bonus to keep employees whole, because if you change the payroll cutoffs, it can harm an employee as far as their cash flow. So these are you may have to change your timing until we get some more guidance, because they haven't answered that question about, well, if I had employees work through the 15th, but I don't pay till the 30th, well, that does not seem fair. They have the, to write. Good job, Paul.
Jay asked, to be clear, you're saying the PPP money can't be used for rent mortgage if the same company that owns the shop owns the building. Better have a separate LLC. Well, hold on a second. If you're a separate LLC, then you have a rent payment to your other LLC. That's easy. If you have, if you're Paul's Plumbing and the building is owned by Paul's Plumbing, then it's the interest from your mortgage is the only thing that's qualified. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Brian asked, what about healthcare reimbursement employee portion? Yes.
Healthcare, is that a health reimbursement arrangement plan? Or is this a flexible spending account? Need more information on that.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. Stacy asked, if you hit the FTE during the 8 weeks, are you good? That's kind of gray to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it has to be cured by June 30th.
Right. That's my understanding.
But we all know employees are fluid. Yeah.
Yep.
Waiting for guidance.
From what date employee laid off to they have to be rehired? Well, they have to be before June 31st.
Yeah, that's a hard date. That is June 30th, yes.
Does the company have to take out what the employees pay in insurance premium for what they claim for an insurance deduction?
I think I understand this to mean.
I had to read that 3 times.
I think you're saying, so the employee makes $2,000, but their portion of the health insurance is $200. So we deduct $200 from their gross pay, and the employer pays the $400 remaining premium. The total premium is $600. The employer's portion was $400. The $200 that the employee paid for, ignore that, because we're looking at the employee's gross salary, which is before those deductions. And so the gross salary includes an employee's pre-tax deductions. If that makes sense. Gross wages are extremely important here.
Yep.
Extremely important. Pre-tax deductions, well, we understand that the employee's paying a portion of it. The other pieces, so we got gross wages, the employee's gross wages before deductions. Then we have the employer's portion of the medical insurance that they pay, which is maybe 75% of the total premium or whatever your numbers are, or 100%. And the gross wage plus the employer's portion is the PPP amount you're going to get forgiveness on. Did I catch that right? I don't know.
Hopefully.
Somebody tell me if we got it. Like, did this make sense?
Brian asked, can they be different employees? Of course. It can, as long as you can change it all over. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
Is Identifix and all data considered internet services under utilities?
Ooh, isn't that where you get all your like secret squirrel information? Wow. I
That
mean, why
would be gray.
Yeah.
Gray.
Yeah, I think we're thinking internet access, cell phones, that's a traditional utility. I would probably say no and
Correct.
continue your calculations and tracking with the more traditional utilities.
Sin asked, can we get the last statement by Paul written out? Well, I don't know what that was, and Paul writes nothing out for legal reasons, so we can have a phone conversation.
Right. I didn't even put my name on the PDF document that I gave. No way, it's like blank.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Stacy again asked, my question is what happens with the FTE issue if you run out of PPP dollars and after the volume still doesn't support all the employees coming back full time? What guidance would you have on that?
Ew.
Good luck would be mine.
Well, and that's why we're hoping to see a softening.
Yeah.
We don't know what SBA is going to do because, again, I think when Congress, you know, they got this act passed, it's like, oh, slam dunk, this is going to be done in no time at all. And it turns out it's lasting a lot longer. And even if our state was 100% open and this industry is essential, we're not seeing the same numbers. Very few essential businesses are like, yeah, I'm at my same level. Well, unless you're a certain business like a toilet paper manufacturer or delivery driver or something like that. I mean, some industries are doing well, but yeah, we have to wait for guidance. And that's the part where if you got your PPP money early, your 8 weeks is up and we haven't hit June 30th and things aren't back to normal. So it could, you know, if they stick to the rules, that FTE number by June 30th, that could harm you and turn that dial down on the forgiveness piece. But we are waiting for guidance still. So consider hiring, you know, when people say, well, I don't have a technician. I said, well, what about hiring somebody else that's not a technician or a worker bee, but maybe you need someone to handle your social media. Maybe you've always wanted to have your own on-site IT person. Do we need to add an employee in that capacity? Would that work for us? Do we fire our outside IT guy and hire an employee so we can better take advantage of this forgiveness piece? No one says what's going to happen after June 30th and after forgiveness if you lay everybody off. Not that that's a strategy, but you know, we're wrapped up with, well, I have to have another technician. Well, what if you hire someone to handle your social media and advertising in the digital world? I don't know, or an IT person. Think about another capacity, another roles another employee can play for you. Remember, it's not what they're doing, it's the head count and the gross wages, if that makes any sense.
We received a loan number, but didn't receive the funds until almost 15 days later and in a separate month. Can we use it to pay health insurance we paid before we received the actual funds? We kind of answered that before. It's gray. You're taking a risk if you do it. So be aware of that.
8 weeks from the day you got your funding.
Yep. I received my PPP today, May 12th. I have previously negotiated with my landlord to defer rent for May and June. Can the rent I paid in March and April be forgiven instead of June or July? No. Utilities for my storage facility covered if it's in the lease that I have to pay for it.
In the business name?
See, that's the good question.
I would think that if it's in the business name and it's a you know, rent that you have to pay for the business and you have a rent agreement, it's in the business name, then that seems reasonable until we have more guidance on things like that.
Kathy asks, is there an actual loan forgiveness application? The answer is no. How do we send back the SBA loan advance?
Call your lender.
No. I would call up the SBA, and the same way you applied is the same way you ask. Did that. Somebody asked if you have any SBA loans, whether that's on equipment, your building, whatever the case is, your payments are being made by the CARES Act for 6 months. Congratulations. Just be aware of that. This is where SBA loans, everyone really, really, really loves them now. If you have a triple net lease, then yes, that would be considered as okay because it's a part of it. So if I pay every Friday, cutoff is Thursday night, I pay payroll on 5/1, which ends on 5/7. I receive PPP on 5/7. Can I use the period for money for that pay period? That's also gray.
I've got to read that question. I got to read
From
that.
Candy.
Oh, I can't see that one. Must be up at a lower level question. Oh, yeah, wow.
I don't know about that one.
I wish we had more guidance on some of this, like accrual and timing issues. They just haven't addressed the timing. The other thing you can do is just alter your payroll dates, which is easier said than done.
Right.
Where are we at?
If we receive PPP funds on the 15th and our payroll is the 1st of the month and we paid, it's the same thing. It stick with when you got paid, that is when you need to do it. Nate asked, if I had an employee that I laid off a week before I got PPP, should I pay him the wages he missed to make up the amount of the PPP for payroll? My question would be, did they have unemployment for that week?
And the goal would be to hire them back on if that was your intention with the PPP funds. And so
Correct.
some people have decided to kind of make their employees whole before the federal unemployment came into place. Some employees that were on unemployment because the business was entirely shut down. They had no PPP loan. It wasn't started yet. When they got their PPP loan, they decided to add extra wages to make them more whole because the federal piece wasn't in place yet. But again, we don't have guidance on that, but I know people have done that because they felt that they needed to make their employees whole for the shortages once they got their money. But again, we just haven't got a lot of word information on what happens if we're trying to pay a bonus or catch them up so they're not, to get them where they were before all this started, as far as, and that's more of an emotional decision that employers have made versus what the rules are. But people are making both types of decisions.
You guys are really pounding away these questions, so we're going to give shorter answers moving forward, Shawn.
Yes,
So
sir.
if you
Sorry.
guys- Maybe if you guys could pick out like three more questions, pick out 3 more questions there, because we're over an hour now.
Okay.
Oh, good Lord.
Can the owner of the corporation, which has been on draws in 2019 and 2020, now planning to be on payroll, can that be counted towards gross wages? No. That's kind of cheating the system.
Yeah, because remember, this forgiveness piece is based on your payroll in 19 usually, and if your numbers weren't in there, yeah, that would be kind of messy. We should, well, it depends. Let's just say it depends on the business and the other facts in place. What else you got, Paul?
I think we actually went through, is there a difference between SBA Treasury 310 and the EIDL? I don't even know what the Treasury 310 is.
Me either.
Never heard of it.
Okay, well, that's something we could probably come back to at some point.
Okay.
And that's from Office 02, so I'm not quite sure who that is. So
the advance of 10,000.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's incorporated. One's kind of a grant per employee head count, and one is kind of a long-term loan for business stabilization.
Okay.
So that's it. Sorry, Jeff.
That's okay. Hey, I want to thank everyone for being on the call. I mean, we had 100 people on the call today. Amazing. And we're also going to do this again on Thursday at 2 o'clock. So, so we're putting on
yay.
the same program again on Tuesday. So let's see if we can get another 100 people on there. It'd be awesome. So, you know, for doing self-introductions, I think with 100 people would take us about an hour to do that. So I just want to thank Paul and Shawn for your presentation today. How about a hand from everybody? There we go. Yeah, we got hands
Thank
going. So, and then I'd like to thank Kathy and Margaret from NATA and all the NATA members for being on and their input into this program. And we are going to be trying to put on programs twice a week from here on out with pertinent information that everybody needs to know about their business. So thank you so much, everybody, for being on. Brian, do you have anything you'd like to throw in there?
Nothing big and additional other than, you know, thank you to everybody for coming, and you know, huge thank you for Shawn and Paul putting this on. That's just a major deal and great information. So with that, have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.